Hey everybody, Rose Matter here. Welcome to part 8 of my Higurashi When They Cry Matsuribayashi Let's Play. In the last episode, we got all the fragments put together and we are starting a new timeline, hopefully the timeline that we want, where everybody will make it through to the end of 1983. I'll be so upset if after all of these chapters and all of this build-up, it just ends up failing anyway, but I have a good feeling, especially because we've got Akasaka on board, and surprisingly, Hanyu. Hanyu is in the human world, and she is, posing as a student at the school. So she is on our side now, which is awesome, and I'm so excited to see where the story is going to take us. So without further ado, let's get back into it.
はい、バンケットより後方。スピーチあと一人で乾杯に入ります。準備できてるね。
Okay, so this is Takano's side of things.
後方 OK です。内部全然聞こえないんで、スピーチが終わるタイミングでコールをお願いします。
いいかい。各宅にビールは10本ずつだよ。ちゃんと自分の縄張りにスムーズに運んでね。
Young waiters with bow ties got bottles of beer ready for a toast. So this we've already seen, I think, at the beginning of this chapter. This is Takano with that, like, secret society. There are several dozen tables with white tablecloths on them in the banquet room. Approximately 8 people are sitting at each table, so there were at least a few hundred people there. So this, I wouldn't mind if they, like, skipped a little bit since we've already seen this, but I was told that I'm only about halfway through the chapter, which makes me very happy that they're not going to just rush this timeline, because I've been waiting, how many, like, a year? I've been waiting a year for this moment, so I didn't want them to just, like, speed run it, so I'm happy to know that there's still a lot left. The banquet room is teeming with excitement. There are many plates with different kinds of food on each table. A sushi platter, a sashimi platter, a fruit platter. Also, along the wall there are cooks ready to serve fresh sashimi. All the guests appear to be well-mannered gentlemen, and obviously they are notable people from different fields. The huge and beautiful chandelier above them clearly tells that this hotel holds a status good enough for these famous people. An elderly gentleman is giving a long speech on the stage before making a toast. Usually people don't like such long speeches, especially if it's before a toast, but the guests are actually excited with his speech. Well, maybe fervor was a pleasant way to put it. It was probably more accurate to say their excitement was bizarre. Anyway, Japan accepted the demand for unconditional surrender, and the day they did, the Pacific War ended. In other words, even if they had to take care of further business, the war ended that day according to international law, and from that day on there was peace. Therefore, if any troops invaded Japanese land during that peace, that would be an encroachment against Japan. No matter what the Soviet Union says, the northern territories are Japanese land, and it should be clear to everyone that they invaded illegally. Hear, hear. And now they want to settle by returning a mere 2 islands to us? Who do they think they're kidding? Listen, Habome, Shikotan, Kunashir, and Itsurup are Japanese territory. Their total area is equal to an entire prefecture. What would you think if the Soviets invaded and occupied one of our prefectures? Would you settle for just getting half the prefecture back? No, you wouldn't. You'd have the entirety returned to you. Yet the Soviets are brazenly sitting there claiming vested rights to the land. This is no joke. We must strongly oppose this to the bitter end. Okay, maybe this is a little bit different. I feel like before they were talking about how, like, Japanese kids don't respect their teachers and they're teaching history, you know, like the wrong Japanese history, and they're not teaching them, like, all this stuff. Yeah, I don't know if we've heard this one yet. Return all the northern islands. Our nation must demonstrate unwavering resolve on that point. Thunderous applause filled the banquet room. All the gentlemen agreed and expressed that they felt the same way by cheering him on. In all that hubbub, there were 2 people standing by the wall who didn't seem to fit in with the rest. They were wearing sharp-looking suits, and while a little too old to be called young men, were certainly young compared to all the elderly gentlemen in the banquet room. Is it Akasaka? I like how every time they mention a guy, I'm like, is it Akasaka? I'm an Akasaka stan, apparently. It is too. I'm so excited.
政治家が一番欲しいのは票だ。票は有権者が投じる。
Okay, I guess this is completely different from Takano's thing.
だが、20歳以上が全員投票するわけじゃない。投票率のほとんどは
退職して時間にゆとりがあり、その分政治に関心の高い高齢者が占めている。
となれば高齢者層をいかに取り込むかというのが選挙のポイントになるわけですね。
It doesn't help that his music is like pretty cool too. The war only happened 40 years ago. In other words, the generation that's interested in voting is the generation from before the war.
うちのおふくろよく空襲の話をします。昔は水道橋のあたりに住んでて、空襲で家族を全員失って焼け野原を一人さまよったなんて話をいつも。
そうさ。
Our parents went through the war. They shed their blood, sweat, and tears believing it was for the good of the nation. We lost the war, but they believe the war still brought about change that serves as a foundation for the peace we have today. Ah, I hear that a lot. That if Japan hadn't fought in the war, the Asian countries would still be Western colonies. There was no way we could have won, but we needed to fight in that war, something like that. In that case, no matter how much they preach pacifism, the music's a little bit distracting because it's got lyrics and I'm trying to listen to it. No matter how much they preach pacifism, Jesus, politicians can't ignore the pre-war generation. War is bad and we should never again fight a war. But that war was necessary. Unless they say things like that, it's like they're denying the very lives that generations lived.
なるほど。政治家も票を取るのに大変なんですね。
そういう主義主張も本心でしているなら一意見の主張として立派だと思う。だが彼らの票が欲しくて表向きだけ調子を合わせてる卑劣な政治家もいる。そういう迎合的な政治家が後を絶たない限り解雇主義は永遠に終わらないのさ。
そうして若者とお年寄りの意識の格差は多分1000年経っても相変わらず。
They'll just keep repeating that the war was justified yet regrettable every time an election takes place. When will our country ever be freed from that cycle?
簡単さ。若者がちゃんと選挙に行け。そして安易な迎合にごまかされずちゃんと政策を考えてるやつに投票しろ。実現可能な政策だぞ。
ああ、いますね。明らかに実現不可能な公約を掲げてる候補者っています。あ、赤塚さん、F 択ってあれじゃないですか。
あのご婦人だな。行くぞ。
Oh, are they looking at Takano? The speech had ended and the elderly gentlemen were giving the man on the stage a standing ovation. Does he know about her? The two men walked through the crowd and approached an old lady in a kimono. Oh, never mind.
はい、私ですけれども。
昨日お電話で約束させていただきましたものです。赤坂と申します。
Oh, I wonder what's going on there.
主人はね、ずっと日本のためにと。それなのに。
奥さんの胸中深くお察しします。
This wasn't really anything out of the ordinary. Nobody could remember if there had been a donation or not. So a handful of politicians were questioned. As a result, some came up with a scheme to blame a sickly elderly man who had already retired. With only a short time to live anyway, he was the perfect fit for them. The elderly man had already been sick in bed, and the shock of his friends betraying him had taken away his will to live. The only thing his wife could do was to simply watch him suffer. She kept crying while telling the men about her husband's achievements.
ご主人の無実が間違いなければ必ずや裁判官は正義の判決を下すでしょう。大丈夫です。濡れ衣は必ず晴らせます。
そんなのは分かっています。だって無実なんですから。でもね、判決が出るまでお国のためにとあれだけ働いてきて、こんな気持ちで死ねなんて、あれじゃあ死んでも死にきれません。
Akasaka nodded and tried to find the right words to say to her. His colleague rummaged through a pile of paperwork behind him. The papers were filled with fine print, and it would be hard for an onlooker to tell exactly what they were. However, the way he was looking at them made it very clear they contained something important.
赤坂さん、こいつはすごい資料です。金の動きが完全に網羅されてます。
Akasaka gave him a signal to remind him this wasn't the place to be looking through those documents.
奥さん、この他には書類束のようなものはありませんね。
ええ、主人の金庫に入っていた文書は それで全てです。どうかそれで恩知らずな連中に一泡吹かせてやってください。あれだけ主人に世話になっておきながら。
奥さん、この文章の内容には一部ご主人にとって不利益な内容も含まれていますが。
ええ、それは分かっています。政治はね、綺麗事だけじゃないんです。私だって政治家の妻ですのよ。
ご協力を感謝します。この書類は必ず巨大な不正を暴くために使用します。
一つだけよろしいですか。それを公表するのは主人が亡くなるまで待ってもらえませんか。
The paperwork Akasaka received was something her husband intended to take to the grave with him, something that shouldn't exist in this world. If it went public, her husband's name would be disgraced. Akasaka nodded.
わかりました。誓ってお約束します。
Vast public funds were moving from, oh boy, Kasumigaseki. The funds were issued to sub-branches to carry out national policies. But various ideas over those public funds always came together, and there was never an end to those trying to poke a straw into it to suck it out like a mosquito. Excess dividends, cordial patronage, profits for organizations that benefited themselves. Many financiers approached and adhered to officials and politicians hoping to earn those gains. And the bureaucrats constantly indulged them. That's how Japanese corruption works. These illegal pipes from form bypass after bypass, and Kasumigaseki siphoning off public funds for their profit. To find and destroy such pipes is, of course, in the national interest. But eliminating illegal expenditures isn't as simple as all that. There are important people connected to those pipes, and when those people are investigated, a major political scandal takes place. The reason why the government doesn't investigate such illegal expenditures is not only to protect vested interests, oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm all tongue-tied today, but also because they are conscious of the damage these scandals can cause politically. To put it more succinctly, the government can't endure the pain of pushing pus out of a wound. Ugh. Could there have been maybe a better way to put that? The closer the exposed subject is to the top, the greater the pain faced by the government, and that affects the cabinet approval rating. The closer the subject is to the core, the more extensive the damage to the heart. The secret investigation Akasaka was leading went as close to the heart as it got, and could cause a collapse of the administration from shock. Akasaka was tipped off that a huge amount of public funding was leaking out through an alumni organization of the 7 imperial universities, so he and his colleagues had been conducting a secret investigation into the matter for a long time. I wonder if Takano was gonna, know about Akasaka since she seems to know everything. His target was tightly knit, but he learned the wife of one of the organization's senior members bore strong resentment toward them after her husband was made their scapegoat, and he managed to contact her. And because of that, he had gotten his hands on extremely important information.
みんなご苦労さん。だいぶ外堀が埋まってきたようだね。特に赤坂くんが入手した資料は相当ショッキングなものだよ。ずいぶん苦労したでしょう。お疲れさん。
いえ。
The small meeting room was filled with boxes that were in turn filled with documents. A whiteboard was filled with cramped writing, too. A few of the investigators in the meeting room, which was also filled with smoke, were reading the documents intensely. Their intimidating manner clearly indicated that they were police officers with a great deal of experience. Akasaka was one of those men. It had been a while since Mamoru Akasaka was transferred to this department. When he worked on the case of the kidnapping of Minister Unukai's grandson, he had been a rookie, but by now he was an experienced investigator. After a knock on the door, an elderly man entered the room. Everyone straightened up all at once. We know his wife is most likely alive, but I need to know for sure.
お疲れ様です。お疲れさん。立たなくていい。楽にしてくれ。諸君に今日は素晴らしいプレゼントを持ってきたぞ。カノ。お前を息子の授業参観に行かせてやる。
The meeting room was filled with sighs tinged with exasperation and resignation. It certainly wasn't because any of them hated getting to go to Parents' Day.
やっぱりな。そろそろ頃合いだと思ってたんですよ。くそ。
Akasaka's colleague complained. They had been so close to getting to the root of this issue. They had such strong evidence. Akasaka, on his part, wasn't too disturbed. This had happened several times in the past, and considering how hot the documents he obtained were, it was easy enough to predict. The case was suddenly transferred to another department. That meant their investigation ended here. The new department was supposed to continue the investigation to expose injustices, but that's never happened once before. It was just an excuse. The investigation had been terminated because of pressure from above.
くそだね。
Ugh, this is why I couldn't be a cop. I'd get so frustrated because, like, it's like putting a puzzle together, right? And it's like having to put a puzzle together and you're close and then you have to send it off to someone else and they complete the puzzle, or it just, like, doesn't go anywhere after that would make me so frustrated.
俺たちが今日まで捜査してきたのは何のためだったんでしょうかね。
海を出す痛みがどの程度か測るためだろうな。
Ugh, Akasaka, stop talking about puss. Gross.
その結果、痛みに耐えられない規模だということが分かり、荒領事を断念したってことだろう。
In that sense, their hard work wasn't wasted. Because of it, the investigation was terminated. Akasaka understood that, but his colleague wasn't yet mature enough to understand. I would definitely be that colleague being like, we worked so hard and we don't even get to, like, reap the benefits or, like, see the conclusion to it. Of course, Akasaka's sense of justice was displeased by this. He felt frustrated with his superiors who had hesitated to expose the truth. But he was mature enough to know not to say that out loud.
資料の整理と引き継ぎについては今後向こうと調整していく。とりあえずみんな長く休んでないだろう。5時を待たなくていいぞ。引き上げて体を休めてくれ。残務整理は明日話し合い。あと振り替え休暇の消化をしよう。ちゃんと消化して神さん孝行しろよ。
Oh, is this going to be Akasaka going to Hinamizawa? With his wife, who's alive, for sure?
主査は俺と来てくれ。以上だ。
Yes, sir. Though his long secret investigation left a bad taste in his mouth with its resolution, he managed to earn a holiday until the next incident arrived.
じゃ、室長のお言葉に甘えますかね。みんな、今日は早く帰って休みな。
こういう時、早帰りすると不倫の現場に出くわしたりしちゃうんですよね。
バカだな。お前知らないだろう。赤坂さんとこは熱愛夫婦だぞ。毎晩別当の公衆電話からラブコールかけてるの知らないのかよ。
赤坂んところはいいよな。うちの女房なんてそりゃそっけないもんだよ。
Akasaka smiled bitterly as he gathered the documents in his hands. One of the pages fell to the floor. It was a page from a huge pile of papers documenting illegal expenditures. They exposed the illegal expenditures of the Alphabet Project, the research team for the next generation of hardware in the Defense Agency. I mean, I knew that he was going to come into contact with, like, Takano and the Alphabet Project at some point, obviously, if they were investigating these kinds of things. It was entirely possible that this project was created in the first place for the purpose of funneling these illegal expenditures. When he saw the paper, one thing caught Akasaka's eye. He picked it up, looked at it, and tried to remember. It was a list of people who illegally received public funds. It was also a list of retirees who were still very much in love with money. There should have been no connection between those people and Akasaka. However, there was one thing that caught his attention.
入江
Oh, yes, yes. As soon as he said it, all sorts of memories resurfaced. There's the fragment. Here's the fragments of him, just like that one piece of paper is going to start all this. Yes, the Erie Clinic. When he was working on the case of when he was working on the case of Minister Inukai's grandson's abduction, he got into a scuffle with the suspects and became injured. He was taken to the local clinic. As he recalled, the name of that clinic was the Erie Clinic. He started to remember one thing after another. His very first experience with wading into the muck, and Rika. It was burnt into his mind like a fresh memory, and he could vividly recall everything that happened. His daughter was about to be born, and he really didn't want to go to Hinamizawa. He met Oishi, who taught him a lot of important things. And he's going to meet up with Oishi again, and it's going to be like a buddy cop thing. It's going to be awesome. He also met a girl in that village. Her name was, yes, Rika Furude. That was it. How long had it been? How old was she now? As he remembered her lovely smile, he also remembered the ominous prediction she made. She had predicted that if he didn't go back to Tokyo, something terrible would happen. At the time, he took it as nonsense, but he felt something odd about it, as if it was a divine omen. Then he had remembered Yuki, who was about to give birth. He became concerned that something terrible would happen to her. But he couldn't just leave and go back to Tokyo. That's why he called her right away. He told her something would happen. He told her to be very careful until he returned. Yuki had laughed and told him he was being paranoid, but that phone call indeed saved her from a calamity. Akasaka had found out about that when he visited her after returning to Tokyo. A few days after his phone call, a janitor was seriously injured when he stepped on a loose tile on the stairs on his way to the rooftop. He also heard afterwards that Yuki had a habit of going up to the roof for a walk every day, but because of his phone call she had stopped doing it. If he hadn't called her, she would have been the one to step on that loose tile. In other words, Rika Furude's prediction had been correct. There was no proof, but Akasaka still believed he was able to save Yuki only because of Rika Furude's prediction. He'd intended to call and thank her for saving Yuki, but the busy days that followed put it out of his mind. Oh my gosh, I forgot how cute and little she was, Rika-chan. I mean, she's still cute and little, but she was even smaller and littler and cuter. He wondered if she was still doing well, if she was still smiling. Akasaka remembered the sad prediction she made on that night under the moon while still wearing that smile. That's right. She'd said something. She predicted someone would get killed on the night of the festival every year, and that on the 5th year in, she would be the one to be killed. That's right, he thought. She did say that. The 5th year. That's this year. The festival is... That's right, it's in June. If he remembered correctly, it happens on the last Sunday of the month. So I'm wondering the last time, in the last chapter where Akasaka did come to Hinamizawa, did he get this information and then he showed up and then he just didn't stick around to help Rika? Or was it just a complete coincidence where he just decided to go to Hinamizawa because he was like, oh yeah, I remember I went there and it was really nice, so I'll bring my wife. That would be terrible if Akasaka, had a feeling like I should probably go and save Rika, and then he's like, oh wait, no, my wife wants to go to this hotel, so we're gonna do that, and then she ends up getting killed. Akasaka looked at the calendar. It was June 1983. Although there was still some time, the death she predicted for herself was coming up. So I guess in this case, it was good that the investigation ended because he wouldn't be able to Hinamizawa anyway. The girl who'd predicted Yuki's accident also prophesied a mysterious incident that would occur annually for the next 5 years. If they'd actually been happening, then it would happen again this year. Akasaka wondered if Oishi was still at the Okonomiya PD, and then he finds out that the murders did happen, then he's like, okay, I gotta go. If the annual incident she predicted actually was taking place, he would know, yep. In other words, he could confirm if Rika Furude was going to be killed or not with a phone call to Oishi. The girl who predicted her own death had muttered she didn't want to die. Muttered? No. It was clearly a plea for help. A young girl who was trapped in the fathomless, bizarre traditions of a village she couldn't escape had sought help from him, an outsider. She paid his reward in advance, in the form of foreseeing Yuki's accident. He had to get to her. He had to go save her. A flood of emotions filled him up. He felt as though he had finally remembered something he was never supposed to forget. That's right. He had to go to Hinamizawa. He had to save the girl who asked him for help.
はい、沖宮署でございます。
すみません。そちらの刑事課に現在も大石クラウド氏は在籍されておりますでしょうか。もしもいらっしゃったならお願いしたいのですが。
失礼ですが、どちら様でしょうか。
警視庁の赤坂とお伝えください。
Oishi was a very lively person, but he had been old even back then. Maybe he had already transferred somewhere else, or maybe he'd since retired. But if he was still there, he'd be happy to hear from Akasaka. He sure had a unique laugh.
大石さん、外線からお電話です。東京の警視庁からですよ。
Oh, I haven't heard this. I haven't heard this nice smooth jazz music in a while.
そりゃまた遠くからはるばるどちら様ですかね。
Akasaka and Oishi have some good music, I gotta say.
はい、もしもし。お、 こりゃ懐かしい。どうです、お元気にしてましたかな。
Yay! I'm always happy for more Akasaka and Oishi. Especially Akasaka, because like I said, I stan. Hanyu has already grown used to being around us. Since Rika-chan and Sadako are her age, she's become especially close with them. Of course, Rena and Mion are looking after her too. Rena told me something the day Hanyu joined the class. She said that Hanyu has been close to us for a long time and that she's been watching us play, that she always wanted to join us. I still can't remember seeing her before. Oh boy, how long has it been since we've been in, like, Keiichi shoes? But somehow, I can believe it. Hanyu has accepted all the things that surprised me at first as if she knew about them all along. She knows everything about us. And it seems she's truly excited about finally being able to join in.
羽生もすっかり僕たちの仲間に溶け込みましたのです。
だな。なんだかずっと前からそうだったように感じるよ。そんなはずはないのにな。
そんなことありませんです。ずっと僕たちのそばにいましたですよ。
あれ、リカちゃんもそんなこと言うんだな。レナも言ってたよ。俺だけが気づいてなかったのかな。
ケイイチは鈍感だからきっと気づかなかったに違いないのです。みー。
ち、どうせ俺は鈍感ですよだ。
はわわお。リカとケイイチが座り込んでいますのです。疲れましたですか？羽生が疲れ知らずなだけなのです。僕たちは遊びすぎてヘトヘトなのですよ。だって僕はずっとみんなと一緒に遊びたかったから、これくらいでは遊び足りないのです。もっともっと遊びますですよ。はわわう。
元気だな。ところで羽生さ、その頭のそれ
Finally, someone points them out.
遊んでて落ちちゃわないのか？
Hanyu has horns on her head. Like, nobody thought to, like, be like, hey, that's kind of weird. I thought that it was a hair accessory of sorts, so I didn't want her to lose it while playing. I was going to offer to hold them for her while she ran around. But Hanyu's face clouded over and she apologetically held on to the horns.
ケイイチ、羽生のは取れませんのです。
え？あ、そうなのか？変なこと言ってごめん。
やっぱり角なんかがあるとおかしいでしょうか。おかしくなんかないよ。キュートでかいよ。そうそう。
I was going to say, I've heard of people being accepting of others, you know, like differences, but this is a whole nother level. Kei-chan even has a horn between his legs, don't you? Though it's hard and curves backward. Oh boy. Blah? What kind of horn is between his legs? What kind?
相変わらずレナさんのパンチだけは見切れませんわね。大丈夫ですのミオンさん。顔面がへこんでますわよ。
Everyone laughed except Hanyu, who didn't seem to get it. I shouldn't have said anything. I bet she doesn't like to talk about her horns. But if I try to apologize, I think things will get even more complicated. As I thought about what to say, Rena took the girls over to the shrine gate.
気にしなくていいのですよ、ケイイチ。羽生も気にしないようにしているのですが、まだ修行が足りないということなのです。
やっぱ気にしてたんだな。すまん。これからは気をつけるぜ。
羽生は大昔にこのひなみ沢にやってきました。
I wonder if Rika's just gonna come right out and say who Hanyu is?
あ、やっぱりそうだったんだ。
Instead of just like being coy about it?
だよな。村の中のことを転校生にしちゃ随分詳しかったしな。
羽生がひなみ沢に住む前、どこに住んでいたのかはよく知りません。
I asked her once, but all she said it was a place I wouldn't understand. Hanyu said that she, or rather Hanyu's people, couldn't live there anymore. They looked for a new place to live for a long time. They traveled a very long way before arriving in Hinamizawa. There was a beautiful swamp in the area, and that was exactly what Hanyu's people were looking for. But there was a village nearby where people lived. To show respect to the original inhabitants of an area was law among wandering people like Hanyu's. Her clan decided to live peacefully and coexist with the villagers. However, their attempts to coexist didn't go so well. The villagers were too childish and immature to accept these newcomers. They strongly rejected them and caused a terrible, tragic disaster. Hanyu said she took their form and descended upon this land in order to subdue the disaster. However, she just couldn't hide her horns. The forbidden ancient document said that Hanyu descended into the Furude shrine, appearing as she does today. It also states the following: Hanyu's people can't live anywhere other than this village. They can also only live by coexisting with the villagers. The Furude shrine's priest once rejected them, claiming that coexistence was impossible if mixing with the wandering people's blood caused the villagers to become demons. But the young heir of the Furude shrine fell in love with Hanyu, and when their child was born, the priest had to reconsider. O wandering people who cannot hide your horns, if you wish to settle in this land, if you wish to settle with our blood, then I shall consider granting your wish. However, as the demon's blood mixed with the villagers, it became hard to tell who was human and who was demon. The villagers began to cast suspicion on one another, haunted by that paranoia. Unless all of that was resolved, coexistence would be impossible. For you and us to coexist, we must lay down several laws for us to follow. They will be very strict. I am very sorry for imposing these upon you who have lived in peace until now. However, as long as those rules are followed, the village will be free from demonic disaster. Very well, the rules will be followed. But much blood has already been shed in the village. The anger, sins, and corruption people bear cannot be cleansed. The one law of the human world is that sins are atoned for with life. I see. If you say it is your way to let someone take on all responsibility and bury the sins with them, then we'll do that. However, wouldn't people end up pushing responsibility on each other because nobody wants to die? Exactly. That's the ugly demon in the world of man. No one will accept their own sins, but only foist them onto each other. Since they can only clear the balance with their lives, everyone refuses to pay, and the sins just keep adding up. Without cleansing them, they stagnate, and people cast them upon each other forever, doubting each other and passing them around. I see. If that is the unopposable law of this world, and you yourselves are troubled by this law, then in exchange for coexisting with us, I shall grant you a world where people do not blame their sins on each other. What kind of world is it? So long as mankind exists, they will commit sins and give rise to corruption. How could that all be erased without foisting it onto someone else? Let me bear all the sins and corruption born from man, and purify my soul. Let all sins rest not with man. If they are born upon myself, then man will not need to force them on each other. What are you saying? Are you really going to make yourself into a sacrifice? Someone has to take on the sins, otherwise they won't be cleansed. That's the law of your world, isn't it? And that's what Rena saw, right? Rena, the thing about Hanyu saying, like, coming to her and saying, like, let me take on your sins so you can stop cutting yourself and blaming yourself. A different ancient document also states the following. Of course, it is a forbidden one, too. Only the head of the Furude family is allowed to read it. Nobody else. Not even the other heads of the three families. It tells that unrest grew in people's minds, that the villagers' evil hearts collected in the swamp and gave rise to demons. The Furude Shrine's priest explained that the root of all evil is the demon god of the swamp and led the young villagers there. By the swamp they found a demon mocking the unrest in people's hearts. The young villagers fought bravely, captured the demon, and dragged it to the Furude Shrine. The priest cleansed the demon god, opened her abdomen and dragged out her organs. He chopped them up and washed them down the stream, then threw the body into the swamp. Then people regained their sanity. Those who had been suspicious of each other became friendly, and they all shared in the joy of peace again. If these forbidden ancient documents are real, Then the object of the villagers' worship, Oishiro-sama, was captured by the villagers, forced to bear all their sins, and torn to death. Plus, it's clearly written that the demons appeared after unrest grew in people's hearts. In other words, the demons were forced to bear the sin of discord that rested with man long before they arrived. Oishiro-sama was a god who took on people's sins to mend conflicts between them. People eventually came to honor her, and it's said that became the foundation of faith in Oishiro-sama. I don't understand exactly what that means, but I know one thing. When none of us humans would draw the losing straw, she offered to draw it in our stead. To prove it, we cleanse our filth by letting cotton absorb it and drift it down the stream during the Watanagashi festival. There's no shame or shifting responsibility involved. Until that system was created, we were simply demons who pushed our filth and our responsibility on each other. We could only cleanse our own sins by blaming someone else and sacrificing him by cutting open his abdomen. And Hanyu took on that job. A purification ceremony without a human life. A system that forgives people for their sins. That is the origin of the cult of Oishiro-sama, which blames not people for their sins, but the curse. Those documents were sealed away. If they weren't, people would find out the object of their own faith was falsely blamed and killed by their own ancestors. Hanyu apologizes. She takes in people's sins and keeps apologizing. Ah, okay. We're getting more into the apologies. When people can't deal with their own sins anymore, she accepts them. And that's why in every chapter, when things are going sideways, they always hear someone apologizing. When Hanyu takes over, people are cleansed and they are allowed to keep living. Demons take on sins by becoming cotton to absorb them. They are exterminated and washed down the stream, and then the village is forgiven. They are forgiven for their sins. If that's all true, then Hanyu, or rather Oishiro-sama, is such a tragic existence. I've asked Hanyu about this before, and she told me the following story. 4 people are stuck in a snowy mountain cabin. They play a game where each sit in one of the 4 corners. It's a fairly well-known story. It's in the middle of winter. They're all getting sleepy. If they fall asleep, they'll die. So one of them comes up with an idea. They're sitting in the 4 circles of the room, so someone just has to walk clockwise to the next corner and wake up the person sitting in that corner. The one who just walked will sit in the corner, and the one who just woke up will get up, walk to the next corner, and wake up the person sitting there. If they keep doing that, nobody will fall asleep. People who know the story won't need an explanation, but this doesn't work with 4 people. When the first person gets up, their corner becomes empty. So after everyone takes turns, the 4th person goes to the next corner, which is an empty one. They sit down and fall asleep, so the game is over right there and everyone freezes to death. In other words, to play this game, you need more than 4 people. You need one more person in order to be saved. People usually tell this as a ghost story. Oh, it's Hanyu! Hanyu is the one we need in order to be saved. They usually say this was actually a group of 5 people, but one was already dead, and thanks to that ghost, they're able to continue living until the next morning. Hanyu once told me she's like that 5th person. If she can make everything run smoothly by joining a circle of people, then it's very similar to how the telephone game in the mountain cabin manages to function without breaking. Hanyu can complete a circle that can't be realized by people alone. Then those people can live peacefully. She's an existence that completes a circle. Is she bothered by her horns because it reminds her of the time when she was called a demon and punished for the sins she took in? Is her subconscious still tormenting her with thoughts that those who have horns ought to be persecuted?
あの角は生まれつきです。それを意味嫌われ、いじめられたこともありましたのです。
そうなんか？そりゃますます悪いことを言っちまったな。
He's accepting this pretty readily, like he's not even flinching at this story.
そして、羽生はその角があるがゆえに、すべての罪を引き受け。
In some way he has to know, because they do retain a little bit of their memories from, or at least Keiichi. You know what? All of them did. At the last chapter, all of them remembered something. So Keiichi must know deep down about the story already, so that's why he's not too surprised.
生産するというとても大きなお役目を引き受け、全うし、神と崇められたのです。
え？神？
僕の独り言なのです。忘れて大丈夫なのですよ。
Nobody knows who Hanyu really is. Is she really a divine existence that descended from a higher place? Or is she simply an unlucky girl who became a sacrifice just because she had a pair of horns? Nobody knows. But this girl's blood was blended with the Furude family's blood, and that blood has descended into me. Our legends state that if the Furude family has a girl, for their firstborn child for 8 generations in a row, that 8th child will be a reincarnation of Oishiro-sama. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm that 8th generation. Is that why I was the only person who could see Hanyu? 8 generations is a very long time. Maybe that's how long it took for all the sins Hanyu assumed to be cleared. 8 represents infinity. It's a very lucky number. Often curses uttered will contain, I curse you for 7 generations, but the 8th lies beyond that. In other words, 8 possesses such good fortune it can forgive great curses and sins that spanned 7 generations. It's a number with power. It's the time Hanyu needed to cleanse all the sins she took in from the humans. Hanyu and her people simply wanted to coexist with us. When Hanyu had to become a sacrifice, her stomach was cut open and its contents washed down the stream. Then she was thrown into the swamp. And so, the Furude family has been waiting. They waited for a very long time for her to come back. They kept our traditions alive, waiting forever and ever for her return. According to legend, the name Furude was made by adding a horn to the character for fortune teller. The Furude family rose when Hanyu's bloodline was combined with that of human beings. Hanyu is the ancestor of the Furude family, as well as the mother of us all. When I was little, Hanyu taught me a lot more things than my mother did. It's no wonder. I'm her descendant. The curse on the clan who exorcised and buried their very own mother was finally absolved after 8 generations, what seemed like eternity. And then she met me, her descendant, the final generation of the Furude family. Sometimes when I think about that, I feel like there must be some important meaning to this hapless fate thrust upon me. But what kind of meaning could this trial I face, the trial of breaking through the obstacle sealing my fate, have upon the curse that plagued Hanyu and the Furude family for over a millennium? 1,000 years is simply too long a period to communicate thoughts and intentions correctly. Hanyu has become the curse we call Oishiro-sama. Though she originally was a means of salvation, she has become a chain that binds people. The rules about coexisting were misinterpreted as a law that binds villagers to this place, and that continued into the Meiji era. And while the village winds once again blow towards the misunderstanding of isolation thanks to the dam conflict, how does that play into my meeting with Hanyu and this motley fate we're trapped in? I haven't lived long enough to be able to understand that. The only thing I can say for sure is that the Furude family originated when Hanyu's bloodline mixed with that of humans, and the line's final descendant, me, finally met with its ancestor. The Furude bloodline bears a cursed history of placing all of man's sins onto its mother and killing her. Now the beginning and end of that line have met. Hanyu always wanted to join everyone, yet she couldn't hide her horns. Even so, she still wished to be an existence that completes a circle. It's a child's job to bury their parents. But Mother, I've never heard that it's a child's job to kill and bury their parents. Don't ask, child. I'm not human. My horns are proof I'm a demon. A demon's job is to take on the calamities of the human world. Bearing the calamities of this chaotic world and cleansing the unrest in mankind's hearts is my role. Then, Mother, why do you have to be the one? People's sins are people's sins. They aren't yours. Listen, child. People live with their sins. They can't live without making someone else take the blame. Nobody wants to take the blame, so they shift that responsibility around. That is a demon, the true demon disrupting the world of man. By bearing it myself, man may be cleansed, and mankind can be freed from their destiny of doubt and conflict. Let all the sins, the filth, the karma, and the curse come to me. Then attack me, purify me, wash me down the stream, and throw me in the swamp. A human will not do. So it is the fate of one not human to accept that role. If a human were made to bear it, then mankind would not be freed from the demon of doubt. I don't understand. I don't understand, Mother. Mother, you have horns. Are you saying that you aren't human just because you have horns? That even if you are human, the horns make you non-human? Even if you have horns, you're human to me. My child, you are the only one who's ever said that. Even if everyone else calls me XX or XX, you will still call me human. What is passed down in the Furude's many forbidden scrolls, the ones unknown to even the heads of the three families, sealed in the altar in the shrine storage? Understanding that would probably require about as much time as I have spent repeating time. Yet once you understand that, perhaps you'll better understand the smile Hanyu wears as she innocently plays with everyone. Whew, that was a lot of reading. I heard Mion yell in surprise. Something must have happened.
なんだどうしたんだ。
羽生さんがそこでふざけてて転んで斜面を転げ落ちていったんですわ。羽生ちゃん、大丈夫？
綺麗に転がってったけど捻挫とかしてないかな。行こう行こう。
Hanyu had been playing on the slope and tumbled down it. There's a road just below the slope. Mion and the others went down to the stairs to go get to her. Let's go. I hope she isn't injured. Oh. Oh, man. I wonder... Okay, I'm assuming Rika is gonna know. Tell, like, hey, don't trust that woman. When I got there, I saw Tomatake-san and Takano-san. They were taking care of her.
これはどういうことなんだい？
And Takano has seen Hanyu, or like she seems to be aware of Hanyu's existence, so I wonder if she knows, especially considering she's got horns. And Takano definitely knows about Oishiro-sama. So Takano is probably going to be like, I know who you are, and I know what you're trying to do.
急に彼女が転がり落ちてきてね。
ずいぶん綺麗に転がってきたわね。でも頭をゴチンとやってしまったみたいだから、後でコブになってしまうかもね。
I wonder if Hanyu can be killed, like in human form? Like if she gets killed, does she cease to exist?
よく冷やしておいた方がいいわよ。
Like, is Hanyu able to be hurt in this form?
私たちの声が聞こえます？ほら、指は何本に見えますの？
She sounded disoriented, but didn't appear to be injured. What a relief for everyone. I bet she's just feeling dizzy from rolling.
でもよかったね。怪我がなくて。
いやはや。しかし、転がってった先に看護師さんがいてくれたなんてできすぎだね。
Oh yes, what perfect timing indeed.
あら、非番の時の私は野鳥撮影家なのよ。ねえ、次郎さん。
まあね、そういうことさ。
まあひなみざわっこならこのくらいで怪我はできねえよな。羽生ももう立派なひなみざわの仲間ってことだぜ。
羽生ちゃんっていうの？見かけない子ね。新しいお友達？
ええ、そうですわよ。
And Hanyu's got to keep her like, she's got to be like, alright, stay cool. Don't let Takano know that you know what's up.
月曜日に転校してきたばかりなんですのよ。
これ、何？変わってるわね。おもちゃ？
Takano-san tried to poke at one of Hanyu's horns. They'd be an interesting hair accessory if they were an accessory.
それは羽生ちゃんのチャームポイントなので取っちゃダメなんです。
あら、そうなの？私はあまり可愛くないと
Oh,
思うんだけど。
here we go. Oh, okay, here we go.
だってほら、化け物
Oh.
みたいじゃない？
Oh. Suddenly, Hanyu moaned as if suffocating.
高野、羽生は化け物じゃありませんです。二度と言ったら許さないのです。
そうだよ、高野さん。人の趣味に悪いよ。
ごめんなさいね。決してそんなつもりはなかったんだけど。
Rika-chan said it rather firmly. I'm sure Hanyu doesn't want to hear that word. Sometimes Takano-san says things in a derogatory way without realizing it herself. Oh, she absolutely realizes it. But I guess there are things you can't or shouldn't say. Hanyu was looking at Takano-san with a complicated look on her face. Is she going to call her out in front of everybody? After seeing that expression, Takano-san realized she might have hurt her feelings. She apologized and left with Tomatake-san.
大丈夫？羽生、きれいに転げ落ちたから、大して怪我はないそうです。リカ、今の人、今の人、高野ですよ。
Wait, Rika doesn't know? Oh, so frustrating.
高野。
Oh, right. Yes, because they... That's right. That's the whole reason why is when it resets, Rika doesn't remember. Duh, of course. Because otherwise she would stay away from Takano in each timeline. But the whole reason that Rika stayed awake during her dissection and made Hanyu watch was so they could remember this is the moment. Hanyu repeated Takano-san's name. All of a sudden, I grew worried that she hit her head or something. Hanyu stood straight up and grabbed Rika-chan's collar.
Rika!
Yes.
高野です。高野そうですよ。高野ですよ。違う、リカ。高野です。高野覚えてないのですか？知ってるわよ。
Oh, okay.
高野美代でしょ。
Okay, so she was just playing dumb?
入江診療所の。
Oh, wait, what?
思い出せないのですか？ごめん、羽生。何の話？
Oh my gosh. No.
リカ。
No, you tried so hard. You suffered for nothing.
そんな。
But Hanyu remembers, so at least something came of it. This is the last one. The last one. She finally imprinted herself with the true enemy's name while enduring the pain of her stomach being cut open. And yet she can't remember? Rika Furude has failed to inherit the memory of the fragments, but Hanyu does. Hanyu just has to let Rika know and hope that Rika, believes her. That's terrible that Rika went through that. And she couldn't even remember.
Akasaka san! ご無沙汰しておりますよ。
大石さんその後もお変わりなく。
I love these two together.
お変わりなくなんてひどいですな。最近リンゴダイエットってのを始めましてね、ちょいと体重が絞れてきたつもりだったんですがね。そういう赤坂さんはこれまた見違えるくらいたくましくなったじゃないですか。
この程度には鍛えてないと体が持ちませんので。
あれ、クラちゃん、その人あの人かい？何年か前にうちに来た東京の公安の。
本田屋さん、ご無沙汰しております。その節はお世話にな。
あんた随分とまあ立派に成長しちゃったじゃないですか。かあ、若いっていいね。
さあ、せっかく来てくれたんです。もうお店に行っちゃいましょう。馴染みの店ですからのれん前でも入れてくれるでしょう。さあ行きましょ
う。大石さん、いいんですか？まだ勤務時間中じゃないんですか？
何言ってんですか。東京本庁からいらっしゃられた特命刑事との特別研修ですよ。さあ行きましょう。ちょいと先に電話してきます。赤坂さんに比べたらカモネギみたいな連中ですがね、ちょいとメンツを揃えまして、いいところにクマちゃん、今夜バチッとポンチしに行きませんか？
大石さん 本当に変わっておられませんね。
Akasaka used to think Oishi wasn't serious enough about work. But after experiencing many different things in the real world, that preconception had completely disappeared. Oishi is that way because of his experience. It's not always best to take things seriously. In this world, sometimes being that frank can help. In Akasaka's case, people often tell him to relax more. But in Oishi's case, maybe he should straighten out a little.
さあさあ、赤坂さん、行きましょう。
ええ、参りましょう。
That's why they're so good together, it's like they balance each other out.
いい返事です。
I want just a whole, like, side, chapter with just these two solving crimes together.
だいぶベテランの余裕ができてきました。そうでなくちゃ。
The old Akasaka would have probably thought Oishi was making fun of him, but by now he could take it as an honest assessment.
赤坂さんもずいぶん強くなりましたね。
They're gonna be playing some, Oh, what's that game that he plays? Crap, it's totally slipped my mind, because we know Akasaka's really good at it.
なんだかお酒じゃ勝てない気がしてきましたよ。いやー、オイルと酒に弱くなるってのは本当ですな。
ご謙遜を。それに、私が強いのは、情報収集が下戸では務まらないからです。ちゃんと予算を切って、常に若手と特訓してますから。日本酒、洋酒、紹興酒。のれんをくぐることもあれば、ミラーボールのお店の時もありますよ。
そりゃいい、そりゃいい。今度ぜひ私も高知に参りますよ。
ええ、ぜひ享受してやってください。最近の若いのは、自分は生まれつき飲めないとか。私だって最初は全然ダメでしたがね。酒は飲めば飲むほどに強くなり、ますますに旨味がわかるようになるんです。
そうです、そうです。聞いてますか、クマちゃん。
面目ないっす。これでもだいぶ強くなったんですよ。
そうだのう。大石と組まされたばかりの頃はお前乾杯からウーロン茶だったからの。
それはいけない。乾杯は重要な意味があるんです。そこでアルコールを飲まないというのは、自分はこの飲み会に福があるって言ってるようなもんなんです。
Oh, that's bad. If I ever go to Japan, is that a Japanese thing where it's like it's good to drink alcohol? Because I'm not really a drinker at all. Like I would be one of those people he talks about, young people who can't hold their liquor. I mean, I'm not saying I'm super young, but I never built up a tolerance because I just was never a big fan of drinking.
だから私はそんなことする若手どもにはきっちり指導してますよ。一気飲みしろって言ってんじゃない。とにかく最初の一杯だけは中ジョッキ。
When Akasaka first came to Okonomiya, he was very nervous, but there was no trace of that tension left in him. Seeing that, Oishi realized just how much Akasaka had learned in the past few years.
よっ、赤坂さんかっこいい。いや、もう本当に頼もしくなっちゃいましたね。私にとっては定年までの残り数年でしかなかった間に、いやいや、老兵は去るべきだと痛感します。
そんなことはないです。私も嫌になるくらい経験がものを言う世界というのを勉強しました。力仕事や現場仕事なんか私たち若造に任せて、大石さんのようなベテランにはぜひデスクで胸を張ってこき使ってもらいたいもんです。
ですってよ。聞いてますか、クマちゃん。
いたたたたたたた、すいません、すいません。頑張るっす。
Sorry, Kumagai. Like, I know you're probably a good dude, but man, you don't have the, like, Akasaka and Oishi. They should be the ones together.
大石、熊谷君も頑張っちょるぞい。めんどくさがりのお前さんに代わってよくまめに歩き回っとる。
大石さんはめちゃくちゃな人でしょ。私が大石さんと組んだのはほんの数日間だったんですが、あなたの気持ちもよくわかりますよ。でもね、大石さんがきっとあなたを鍛えてくれますから、最後まで信じてついていってください。 わかりました。頑張るっす。でもお酒は鍛えられても
マーシャル
麻雀までは無理っ
that's what
す
it is.
よ。かみさんに給料を渡す前に大石さんに取られるんです。いや、麻雀も経験なんです。打った場数が強さと自信になるんですよ。後でご一緒しましょう。まずは負けない打ち方を伝授します。
大石、いい若者だの。お前さんが無茶やってた頃にちょっとだけ似とるの。
まさかまさか。私はこんな二枚目じゃありませんでしたから。
It was unusual for Oishi to enjoy anyone's company this much. Akasaka and Oishi only worked together for a few days. They had exchanged some holiday cards since, but that was about it. Oishi had no idea how happy it would make him to see such a greenhorn grow into a dependable cop. Oishi always thought he wanted to be active until the day he retired, but after seeing such a dependable colleague, he began to think that maybe it was time for him to step down. Oishi and Akasaka enjoyed their reunion more than they thought they would. The owner of the place was bringing the electric sign inside. All the chairs were up on the tables, and the owner's wife was cleaning the floor. There was nobody else around. Judging by the clock, it was almost 3 a.m.
フラちゃんたちは久しぶりの再会なんでしょ。ゆっくりしてっていいよ。帰る時だけ起こしてくれねえかな。鍵しなきゃなんねえから。
すんませんな、気を使わせちゃって。
There wouldn't be anything else open at such a late hour. Oishi and his colleagues still wanted to talk, so they decided to stay. Kumagai couldn't fight his sleepiness and was nodding off. They were talking about Akasaka's job. Akasaka works at a department specializing in public safety. Oishi and the others were interested in all his stories of danger and bravery.
それで、実はこちらに来たら、フルデリカという少女に会いたいと思っていたんです。
フルデリカって、フルデ家の忘れがたみのリカちゃまですか？
忘れがたみということは、彼女の両親は
Rika Furude had predicted that there would be an incident in Hinamizawa every year for the following 5 years. Her parents, according to her, were supposed to be killed on the 3rd year running.
ねえ、あれはお社様のたたりの3年目ですから、昭和56年ですかね。フルデ夫妻がちょいと引っかかる形でお亡くなりになりまして、赤坂さんがひなみ沢に行かれてからちょうど3年後の話です。
3年後。私がひなみ沢を訪れてから3年後の6月のことなんですか？
ねえ、そうです。どうしました？何か気にかかることでも？
Akasaka shut his eyes tightly to chase away the alcohol in his brain and tried to remember the girl's prediction. He had, after all, come here to confirm it.
私が訪れたのは、その翌年にダム建設の監督が亡くなられたということは、そうだ、彼は私と麻雀を打った方のはず。あの方はその後どうなさっていますか？
新聞にドーンと載ったと思ったんですが、こっちの地方だけなのかな。その翌年に作業員たちとの喧嘩で殺されてしまいまして。
Rika Furude had predicted that he'd be killed in a gruesome way, that his body would be dismembered.
その遺体をバラバラにされたということは？
なんだ、知ってるじゃないですか。その通りです。未だ右腕が見つかりませんでね。お気の毒なことです。
The following year, on the same day in June 1980, Sadako's parents would be pushed to their deaths. Maybe it should be called an accident. A lamentable accident.
続けて確認します。さらにその翌年、監督の殺人事件の翌年です。確か、そうだ、聡子さんという多分女性の方だと思います。その方のご両親が転落でお亡くなりになるということは？
おや、お詳しいですね。そうです。ダムの賛成派だった北条夫妻が旅行先の展望台から転落しましてね。事故か事件か未だにはっきりしませんが。
And the following year, on the same day in June 1981, my parents will be killed.
そして、
はい。フルでリカのご両親がお亡くなりになります。ですが、 どうもこいつも今一つ腑に落ちない事件でしてね。
お前さん、随分とお社様のたたり関係に詳しいの。この事件、地元の圧力であまり公にされとらんはずなんだが。
なんてことだ。
だが、いくらお前さんでも次の年は無理だろうの。何しろ4年目から秘匿捜査指定がかかっとる。
いえ、多分わかります。
And the following year, on the same day in June 1982, Sadako's mean aunt will die. Her head will be smashed in.
その翌年ですから、つまり昨年です。先ほどの聡子さんの叔母にあたる方が頭部撲殺のような形で殺されてはいませんか？
そうです。赤坂さん、どうしてそんなことまでご存知なんですか？
多分私はさらにその翌年に殺される人物も知っています。
お前さん、何を言っとるんだ。第一、去年の翌年ちゅうたら、そら今年のことだろうが。
I'll be killed.
昭和58年6月、つまり今月です。フルでリカが殺されます。
Oishi and the others were at a loss for words. Akasaka had talked about the 4 mysterious incidents. Although he had been far away, he belonged to a very special unit of public safety. It could have been possible for him to find out about their secret investigations. That was why it wasn't odd for Akasaka to mention the series of mysterious deaths, even though he had been far away from Hinamizawa. However, not only did he know about them, but he also named the next victim. Oishi and his coworkers had sobered up entirely.
赤坂さん、もう夜もだいぶ更けました。これ以上はお互いしんどいんで、単刀直入に行きましょう。今の話は一体どういう意味ですか？
はい、今の話は私が雛見沢を訪れた昭和53年6月に彼女から聞かされたことなんです。
なんですって？
Oishi couldn't believe what he was hearing. He was left speechless.
信じられない気持ちはわかります。それを聞いた当時の私も幼い少女の気まぐれな予言遊びくらいに思いました。ですが彼女は5年目に自分が殺されることを私に訴えました。それはつまり自分を助けてほしいという明白なメッセージだったと思うんです。今回雛見沢を訪れた最大の目的は彼女を訪ね、本当に今でも私の助けを必要としているのかを確かめるためだったんです。
赤坂さん、私はね、今年で定年なんです。連続開始事件の1年目に殺されたおやっさんの仇をどうしても年内に取りたいんです。ですから私はどんな些細な情報でも怪しげな情報でも飛びつきます。だから一応確認させてください。今の話は冗談じゃないですよね。なんかの冗談なら今のうちにそうだと言ってくださいよ。
私は真実しか言っていません。フルデリカは昭和53年6月にただ当時の私はそれを重要な話とは思わず、それを大石さんに伝えませんでした。それは申し訳なく思います。
いや、それは無理もないぞい。そんな話突然されても鵜呑みにできん。4年連続した今だから聞ける話だわい。
Oishi must have been thinking that if only Akasaka had told him that back then, he could have saved his friend. But what the old man from forensics just said was right too. Oishi wouldn't have believed him back then. And his friend would have died anyway, and Oishi would have been left with regret at not being able to do anything.
そうですね。いえ、すみませんでした。しかし、フルデリカがどうして。
今の雛見沢の状況は私も詳しくありません。一応当時の新聞でダム計画の無期凍結が決定されたというのは読みました。ですからダム戦争は終わって平穏な生活を取り戻していると信じていたのですが。
ダム戦争は確かに終わった。だがな、その翌年からな、 通称お社様のたたりと呼ばれる連続開始事件が毎年起こるようになってな。その詳細についてはまさにお前さんが今言った通りの内容なんだわい。
どうやら私は彼女に大変な何かを託されたような気がしてきました。大石さん、ズバリお尋ねします。今年フルでリカが殺されるのはあり得る流れだと思いますか？
フルデ夫妻はダム戦争当時消極的だったことを理由に後ろ指を刺されていたという話があります。それで3年目のたたりにあったというのが定説です。その流れから言えばフルデリカ殺しは
あり得るんですね。
Oishi nodded slowly.
明日フルでリカに接触を試みるつもりです。どうやら彼女に直接話を聞くしかないようですからね。
Alright, this is gonna be the one. We've got Akasaka, we've got Oishi, we've got, all of Rika's friends, we've got Hanyu, we've got, like, the dream team. Let's go. We're gonna beat Takano in this one.
赤坂さん、それ私もご一緒させてくれませんか？フルでリカの話はどうやら私にとっても重要なものになりそうです。
こりゃあ、お前さん、なんともとんでもない土産を持ってきてくれたもんだの。わしもちょいと面白くなってきたぜ。煙に巻かれたまま終わると思ってた怪事件が解けるのに立ち会えるとは思わなんだ。
I feel like the forensic investigator after 7 chapters. It's like, oh my gosh, we're finally gonna get all the answers. We're gonna get, well, we do have most of the answers already, but we're gonna have a good conclusion.
しかし疑問もありますね。どうしてこんな重要な話を私だけに打ち明けたのでしょう。助けを求めるなら東京から出張してきた私ではなく地元警察のはずなのですが。
多分地元警察を信用しきれないところがあったのでしょう。私も泥臭い人間です。リカさんの信用を得ていなかったのかもしれない。それに沖宮署には S 号の息のかかった連中も少なからず潜んでいます。
つまり東京から来た私が一番信用できたという。
悔しいですが、そう
だとしたら大石さん、この件他にはない道に。
I was gonna say it also might not be a good idea for Oishi to show up with Akasaka if he doesn't think that Rika trusts him.
もちろんですとも。とにかく明日ひなみ沢に行ってリカさんに直接話を伺ってみましょう。話はそれからです。
But Hanyu remembers, so Hanyu can tell them, hey, can tell Rika, hey, even if you don't like Oishi all that much, you can trust him. He's been pretty reliable these past, how many resets of the
信じられ
timeline.
ないわ。でも、それが真実なのね。
Okay, so Rika already knows. Hanyu's told her about it. It was in the middle of the night. Only the sounds of insects and Sadako snoring could be heard. Rika was sitting by her favorite window.
そうなの。
Okay, so Hanyu's gone back to... Because the thing is, like, where's Hanyu gonna stay if she's a human?
リカを殺すのは高野なのです。僕もリカもはっきりと見ましたのです。リカは高野の顔を目に焼き付けようと、意識のあるままにお腹を裂かれてもなお歯を食いしばってその顔を見ていたのです。
嫌な死に方ね。毎回記憶に残ってなかったの。でもなんとなくわかる。高野の好みそうな殺し方だもの。でもわからない。どうして高野が私を殺すの？だって私は女王感染者で、私が死ねば大惨事になるんでしょ。だから入江機関や山犬たちが私を守ってくれてるんじゃないの？そのてっぺんにいる高野がどうして私を殺さなくちゃならないの？ごめん。意味のない質問ね。高野が私を殺す。それが真実なのであって、その動機なんか大した問題じゃないものね。しかし、だとしても、よりによって、なぜ高野なの？
Although she just said the motive doesn't matter, Rika went back to the same question. The reason why Takano was protecting the Queen Carrier wasn't because she wanted to prevent the rest of Hinamizawa from developing the syndrome. It was because the Queen Carrier was an extremely valuable subject of her research. Then, considering that value, why did she kill the Queen Carrier with her own 2 hands?
敵はタカの一人なの。はわお。山犬の人たちも敵でした。入江が敵かはわかりませんでしたが、多分敵じゃなかったと思いますです。
タカノと山犬が敵。
She's like, shit.
冗談じゃない。私たち小娘がどう立ち向かえって言うの？無理よ。奇跡でも起きない限り、あんな奴らに私たちが勝てるわけがない。しかも、綿流しは次の日曜日。私が殺されるのは22日。
So I know there's a decent amount of the episode left, so there's probably going to be a lot of stuff in between, but okay. So Watanagashi's coming up soon. Oh, I can't wait to see the whole team together. I can't wait to see, you know, Rika and the club members with Akasaka and Oishi and Hanyu. I wonder if we tell Eri. Maybe we could tell Eri about it. I don't think he could do anything, but maybe let him know as well.
あと1週間ってところ。そのわずかな時間でどう戦うの？タカノを金属バットで闇討ちにでもしてみる？意味ないわ。タカノは所詮連中の一人。タカノ一人を返り討ちにしたって山犬たちに取り囲まれておしまいよ。どうすればいいのよ。どうすれば。そんなの僕だってわからないのです。でも。
And then maybe once she sees Akasaka comes to her, then she'll be like, this is it. This is the miracle.
今までは何度繰り返したって敵の名前だってわからなかったじゃないですか。それをやっと掴んだのです。やれることがあるはずなんです。
This was the first time in a long time that Hanyu has spoken so positively. Rika was startled for a moment, and realized that she was losing her cool. She took a deep breath and tried to calm herself down. She was still confused that Takano was the culprit. Rika had always thought of Takano as her ally. There were, after all, many reasons why Takano should treat her well. Rika couldn't even think of one reason why Takano would want to kill her. Still, Takano was always thinking about bizarre things. There was no guarantee that a crazy idea of hers couldn't become a motive.
ということは、富武は殺されてる。つまり、富武は味方？多分味方だと思いますです。
Oh, we're gonna get all the allies together. Get Eri, get Tomatake. Although, I mean, I don't think he's gonna believe us if we say, hey, your girlfriend's gonna kill us. And you, also.
そうですよ、リカ。富武に相談すればいいのです。
Takano was accompanied by the mountain dogs because of an organization named Tokyo. So could Rika ask for help only from someone affiliated with that organization? Oh, that's right. I forgot he was part of the organization. That's right. That just means he might get killed earlier if he gets in on it. The mountain dogs know that Rika's talking to him and warning him about Takano. In that case, Tomatake was the only one she could talk to about the issue. Although Eri might also be worth having a talk with. But then Eri is also part of the organization, sort of. And then he'll just get killed as well, so they gotta be real careful about that. But then, that was why she needed to know. She needed to know why Takano wanted to kill her. Unless she could explain that, they probably wouldn't even believe her. Besides, Tomatake was in love with Takano. He wouldn't doubt her so easily. Eri seemed to be keeping a little distance from Takano. He might be a little more inclined to believe, but as someone who was simply a doctor, he knew little about Tokyo. He might end up being useless to Rika. Then should she call the police? No way. Definitely no way. There was no way they would believe her. If she were to make a call and say a strange organization named Tokyo was trying to kill her, they would think she was crazy. Then what could she do? How could she save herself? The scariest people in Hinamizawa were coming to kill her. How could she run from them? How could she fight them? How? She had remembered the scene of Takano killing her, she wouldn't have been so confused. Because seeing is believing. But she didn't remember. This was just what Hanyu was telling her. She didn't want Takano to be her enemy. This was a truth she didn't want to accept, so she was tempted to just say this was all simply Hanyu's delusion.
落ち着くのです、リカ。
前の世界で僕たちは学んだはずなのです。覚えていませんですか？前の世界のことを。
前の世界ってあれでしょ？レナが学校にガソリンをまいて立てこもって。違い
ますです。その次にもう一つ世界があったのです。本当に覚えてないのですか？
Yeah, it's weird that she doesn't remember that one at all.
その世界ではあいつが帰ってくるのです。北条哲平が。
最悪の世界ね。何をやっても相談所は様子見で、聡子は数日で廃人同然。どうせ仲間の誰かが発症して哲平を闇討ちにするんでしょ？
違います違います。そこではみんなが力を合わせて相談所に陳情してちゃんと聡子を救ったのです。その世界でリカは圭一にあれだけ教えられたじゃないですか。
Now we're gonna have to do that all over again. Damn it.
奇跡は信じなきゃ起きない。そしてみんなが信じれば必ず奇跡が起こるって。
Please let Tepe not come back in this one. Can we just avoid that whole thing, please?
確かに圭一が言いそうなことね。でもすごいわね。今まで一度も退けられなかった哲平の帰宅する世界を打ち破るなんて。
その世界の圭一たちはどうやって奇跡を起こすか知ってますですか？みんなにですね、ちゃんと相談したのです。どうせダメだとか一人で悩んだりとかしないでみんなに相談したのです。だから奇跡が起こせたのです。
みんなにって圭一たちに高野のことを相談しろと？東京という怪しげな組織に狙われているから助けてって。
信じてくれますです。前の世界では信じてくれましたのです。なんでリカは僕が言うのを信じてくれませんのですか？
ごめんなさい。信じないわけじゃないの。羽生が見たんだから。それは真実なんだものね。自分の記憶に残らないというのがこんなにも温度差を感じさせてしまうものだったなんて。
I just feel bad that Rika put herself through that for nothing. I mean, not nothing, because Hanyu also got it burned in it. Well, Hanyu was the only one who had it burned into her memory, so at least someone remembered.
とにかくリカと僕が2人で悩んでも何も解決できませんです。
It's funny how it's the reverse here than one from the last one where Rika just kept trying stuff. And Hanyu was the one who was just like, oh, you know, just don't get your hopes up on it. Just, I don't want to see you fail and then lament the fact that you fail. It's now that Hanyu is the cheerleader.
僕たち2人の力ではあまりに非力なのです。でも僕たちには武器があります。それは真実です。動機はよくわかんないけど、でも犯人は高野だってわかってます。だからこれはこれまでの世界で一番有利なスタートのはずなんです。それなのになんで最後の最後でリカだけ記憶がつながらないのです。
Maybe Takano did something to her to make her forget? I don't know. It's not just that she forgot at the very end, it's that she doesn't remember anything from the past world at all, whereas, like, obviously she remembers other timelines. Hanyu ground her teeth remorsefully. She saw the truth just a short time ago, so she couldn't believe that Rika didn't remember anything. If it was something she had seen herself, she wouldn't need a motive. But she hadn't, and that was why she couldn't understand. Why was her memory missing even when Hanyu's memory was still intact? Did that mean their long journey was about to end? Perhaps her infinitely repeating journey was already over, and this was the last world of all.
羽生がみんなにも見えて、しかも転校までしてくるなんて、なんだか変な世界だなとは思ってたけど、どうやらここはとびっきりおかしな世界みたいね。
おかしくも何もありません。ただ最後の世界なだけなのです。僕はその最後の世界で みんなと力を合わせるために。僕はここでは傍観者じゃない。リカの、みんなの仲間で、味方なのです。
そういえばそうね。あんた、傍観者をやめたのね。
僕はもう、傷つくことを恐れて、舞台に上がらないなんて嫌なのです。それを恐れずに、みんなと信じる。だから、奇跡が起こせる。これは、昭和58年6月をかけたゲームの世界なのです。戦っているのは、リカとタカノ。期限までにリカが敵を倒せないと自動的に負けになる。タカノたちは、山犬という強力な駒をいくつも持っている。少々の駒を集めたくらいでは、とても太刀打ちできないのです。だからリカは、あらゆる人に助けを求め、対等な数だけ駒を揃えなければ、そもそもゲームが始まらない。このゲーム版のルールを、僕たちは何度も繰り返しながら学んできましたのです。それはまるで説明書のないゲームのよう。でも僕たちは何度も学び、そしてようやく戦い方を知り、さらに敵方の駒の正体まで最初から分かっているという破格のリードがもらえましたのです。リカ、ぼんやりしてる場合じゃないのです。綿流しまであと1週間。前の世界は2週間の猶予で始まりましたのですが、今回は1週間しかない。つまり、これが最後の世界なのです。
わかったわ。私が覚えていないことの不幸を嘆くより、あなたが覚えていてくれた幸運を喜ぶべきね。あなたまで忘れていたら、この最後の世界も、右往左往してるうちに終わってしまったに違いない。それに、Ch.8たちへの相談も、うまく話し方を考えれば、何かいい知恵がもらえるかもしれない。
How stressful must that be for Rika to be told, like, literally, this is your last chance. At least all the other times she could be, and that's why she was kind of blasé. She's like, well, it'll reset and I can try again, but this one, this is it.
何しろ、学校大爆発がほぼ確定したあの世界で、レナと大立ち回りをして正気に戻させるという奇跡を成し遂げた男なんだから。
そうです。とにかく話せる人に相談しましょうです。
But you gotta be careful about who you talk to and that the information doesn't get back to Takano.
僕たちだけではあまりにか弱いのです。仲間を集め、どうするかを考えましょうです。奇跡の道も一歩からなのです。
しかも、それをたったの1週間でね。
Hanyu had never encouraged her like this before. She had always pretended to be a bystander. She never wanted to go through the pain of failure, so she never had expectations for anything. But now she was trying to intervene in this world so passionately and proactively. According to Hanyu, there had been another world after the one in which Rena occupied the school. Apparently, Keiichi really inspired her in that world. Rika had nothing to lose. She had to talk to whoever she thought she could trust. And whether she tried or not, she only had a very short time left. She decided to do whatever she possibly could until that time arrived. She would never again act like it was cool to sip wine pretending to be a witch as the end closed upon her.
もしもし、ご無沙汰しておりますわ。
And this is the woman that's helping Takano.
野村です。ええ、先日は詳細な資料をありがとうございました。厚生省のお歴々も、あなたの丁寧な資料のおかげで、南沢症候群の恐ろしさを理解してくださりました。すべてあなたと、小高野先生の研究の成果ではありませんか。私は正当な研究が正当な評価を受けられるようにしたに過ぎませんわ。それはもちろん、あなたの資料をやがては総理の手にも取らせてみせましょう。
I can't get over how much she sounds like Takano, just in kind of the inflections and the giggling after. She just kind of has that, like, kind of girly, kind of like, you know, coy voice. But there's like something lurking deep beneath. You're like, oh, that's creepy.
総理は一国の主、我が国で最も権力を持つ人物に、あなたとあなたの祖父の論文を読ませ、それがいかに優れた研究であり、そして南沢症候群がいかに特別なものなのか。なのに、その研究をないがしろにし、
無残にもあなたとあなたの祖父の論文を土足で踏みにじった現理事会。ええそんなあなたに朗報があります。終末作戦が終わった後、現地は隔離閉鎖され、陸自の別部門が研究を引き継ぐこととなりました。あなたはそこへ迎え入れられ、派閥や予算に悩まされることなく、心ゆくまで研究をすることができるのです。あなたの献身的努力に報いたいとおっしゃられるクライアントの行為としか申せませんわ。あなたはそこで所長の地位を与えられ、今度こそ思うままに存分に研究に勤しむことができるのです。それはとても素晴らしいことではありませんか。そしてあなたはひなみ沢症候群の研究をステップの一つにし、高野先生が求められていた本当のステージ。いいえ、これはお世辞でも何でもありませんわ。あなたに対する私どものクライアントの正当な評価です。そうですか。長電話を失礼してしまいましたわ。それでは失礼いたします。また追ってご連絡いたします。
The woman put down the headset of her car phone. Then she picked it up again and made another call.
内線1001をお願いします。ええ。渡辺とお伝えを。渡辺です。ええ。先日の件はつつがなく終了しました。はい。高野三佐の資料は素晴らしいものです。さらに、国立研究所の職員を同行させましたので、背広連中はそのまま鵜呑みに。ええ。そちらも問題ありません。20日以降から敵対派閥のほとんどの閣僚は外遊、もしくは西洋で東京を離れます。はい。不確定要素はいくつか残りますが、おそらく6月23日には艦艇の堀は全て埋め尽くされているはずです。はい。ですので、現地作戦は6月22日深夜に決行。23日に総理に緊急決裁を求める日程となると思います。はい。当日、総理を補佐できるブレーンは全て我々側の人間です。総理は万に一つの疑問も抱かないでしょう。ええ、それは間違いなく、総理は必ず緊急マニュアル第34号に署名します。その後はアルファベットへの責任追及となり、奥の千葉派、旧小泉派は発言力を大きく失うこととなるでしょう。ええ、そうです。今村先生の復権は時間の問題です。ですわね。
If there's money to spend on developing domestic nuclear arms or the Japanese-American alliance spanning the Pacific, then it would be more profitable for our nation to spend it on ODA towards China. The 21st century will be the era of China, with their nation claiming a good portion of the world's population. Japan gets nothing out of wagging its tail for the US anymore.
ええ、全くですわ。
Okay. The 21st century is almost here, yet we're still saying that communism is the greatest evil. Maybe we're watching too many bad American propaganda movies.
はい、わかりました。では来週、マカオにてよろしくお願いいたします。ええ、私、カジノは大好きですので。はい、それでは失礼いたします。
I am so excited to take these people down.
また追ってご連絡いたします。
I mean, I don't know if we can. It's like a shadow government, so I don't know if really anything's gonna come of it. If we take Takano down, maybe we can expose this as well, but we'll have to see. The woman put down the handset of her car phone and took a breath. She smiled in satisfaction, then picked up the handset again.
官房長官席を。ええ、前澤とお伝えを。はい、私です。奥野長官。
Okay, I don't know if I'm supposed to know these names of hers. Like, I don't know who she is exactly. I mean, she's literally telling me, but I'm like, I assume we're gonna find out more about her, but okay. So Takano is just another puppet in this whole thing. Alright, so we'll wrap it up here. I apologize, I know the past two episodes, this one and the previous one, were not as long as like the other ones where I was doing like 2 hours, but I don't think I'm going to have time to do really long Higurashi episodes. Maybe the finale will be extra long, we'll wait and see, but oh, I am so excited for the next episode, now that like Rika knows that Takano is her enemy, and Akasaka is going to be meeting with her, and Oishi is on board, and I know that Keiichi and the others are going to be on board. She's going to talk to Tomotage and Eri, get everybody on her side to take down Tokyo and Takano. I can't wait. I've been waiting so long for this, so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye, guys. Special shout out to my top tier patrons: Namara Kito, Sparky, iCognito, Simon Rax, Mad Goldsmith, Harry Gazif, and Asborn Kennedy.